Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Michael, better known as Jedite83, and welcome to my Pagan vlog. As always, you can check out my online Book of Shadows and the official website of the Temple of the Cyber Mage at wiccan.pw. And today I want to talk about labels. No, not the little piece of paper that stick onto things. No. In this case, it's the labels or the types of witches. What name do you want to identify yourself as? Um, and I bring this up, I mentioned this because this is a question that gets asked a lot. I'm on a number of paganism and witchcraft and Wicca for beginner groups on Facebook and on the internet. And a question a lot of new practitioners ask is, what kind of witch am I? What type of witch am I? Or something to that effect. And I know I have discussed this topic before on my channel, 4 months ago, I think it was, in video number 9, literally called Labels Rant. And I stand by everything I said in that video. So we're going to probably rehash much of it. Although in the last 4 months, my opinion on this has changed slightly. But being that we're doing now a more formalized me teaching style videos, I do want to go over this again from a slightly different, I don't want to say point of view, but I want to attack this topic slightly differently than I did in the last, which was more of a rant slash me rambling at the camera for a while. So, what do I mean by labels, or by what type? If you're around witch, and I say, let's say witches, I'm going to go with that one, because that's where you usually see it. For if you're around for any time, you'll see witches who describe themselves with labels. I'm a hearth witch, I'm a kitchen witch, I'm a hedge witch, I'm a ceremonialist, I'm a chaos magician, I'm a this, I'm a that. This is what I'm talking about. And if you are a new practitioner, don't worry about any of it. None of it applies to you. It could. You could have it apply. But I suggest don't worry about it. And here's why. You should view these not as necessarily the path that you must walk or the one that you want to walk, but as a specialty that you've arrived at. This is at least how I view it. Let me explain. If you are a new, and I say this all because I have seen people who go on those groups and say, I have started today, what type of witch am I? And the issue with this is twofold. You don't know, so how would I know? I don't know you. You're someone who just joined this group today. I don't know. I'm not trying to be insulting to anyone, but if you don't know, somebody else can't know that either. And if you are a new witch, you don't have a type. You would call yourself a baby witch, although I know I've addressed it in other videos. I'm not a fan of that term, because I think it is derogatory, or at least demeaning. You're new, but I don't like the term baby witch. I also think I might be in a minority on that opinion. You're a witch, you just haven't learned as much as somebody who's been around for a while. But if you're new, don't worry about what type you are. Unless you have a really good reason, don't worry about it. And the reason for it is, as a new witch, you should be learning basics. Learn how to cast a circle. Learn how to raise energy and focus it. Learn the basics. Once you've gotten a little bit past that, and if you want to know what type of basics, I have a video or my notes back in it was video number 4, so about 8 months ago. I did a video on books. What books do I recommend for a new practitioner? And I would recommend those because those will give you a good foundation not only in Wicca but in witchcraft. But once you've learned basics, a book that I regularly recommend is this one right here. Grimoire for the Apprentice Wizard by Oberon Zale Ravenheart. Yes, this is a kid's book. This is a book definitely meant for kids. It is a product of its time, and this came out... When did this book come out? This edition first published in 2004, copyright 2004. All right, so that makes about sense. Okay, so 2004, when this book came out, because I do believe this is the only edition he's done. I don't think there was an earlier one. Lord of the Rings had just come out. Harry Potter was still in the process of being written and being made as movies. There was people, especially younger people, teens and young adults, who were getting into this. So this book, which was written with that target market in mind, speaks to them. So yes, there are a lot of Harry Potter references, there are Lord of the Rings references, there are Star Wars references in it. However, don't discredit it because of that. Oberon Zale, he wrote this book, I think specifically under the Zale Ravenheart name, which some of his books it's Oberon Zale Ravenheart, some of them it's just Oberon Zale, I don't know. This is by New Page Books. 25, that's actually a reasonable price. He has been around for decades, I think back into the 60s. He is definitely one of the cornerstones of the modern New Age and magical communities. Wicca and the witchcraft as we practice it would not be the same if it was not for this man. But the reason I mention this book is if you are a new practitioner, I think this is a good book, and here's why. He teaches very little religion. If you want to learn Wicca, and I always speak about Wicca because I'm Wiccan, this channel's about Wicca, I come from a Wiccan background. I cannot speak to other paths because I am not an expert on those. If you want to learn Wicca, though, Scott Cunningham, great author. I recommend all of his books highly. If you're new and want to learn Wicca for the Solitary Practitioner and Living Wicca are probably his two big books on the topic. Also, Raymond Buckland's his big blue book. Buckland's another good writer too. He's got a big book. His big blue book. I cannot remember the title of it. It's big blue because it's a big book with a bright blue cover. If anyone can remember the title of it, because I'm drawing a complete blank, throw it in the comments, or I will if I remember. But the reason I like this book, other than it's fun to read, is he gives you a taste of a little of everything. He does go over some basics of how to do magic. Then he gets into aura reading and meditation and elemental magic and nature magic, and gardening would be nature magic. It would fall into green magic, or would that be a hedge witch? This is a place where titles get blurry. He goes into a wide variety of different magics. Stones and herbs and this and that. And I like books like this because they give you a little variety of all the different types of magic that you can be, or that you can study. And as you study more and more, you might find yourself doing one. Maybe you really like cooking, and you find yourself, as you cook, trying to infuse magic into it, or picking the herbs you put into your food based on magical properties. And, well, good news, you're a kitchen witch. But don't say, I'm going to be a kitchen witch and then go learn how to cook. Do what you do, and eventually you'll find yourself falling into a type. You'll find yourself with a specialty. Like for me, I've been practicing for 20 years. October of 2001, or thereabouts, is when I started practicing. Here we are, more than 20 years later. Only now, am I starting to say I have a type. I am a cyber pagan, and I'm an urban magician. Some people would call it urban shaman. I don't like that term because I think I don't want to step on any real shaman's toes by calling myself an urban shaman, even though tossing urban makes me different. No. There's already enough fake, I think they call them plastic shamans out there, giving real shamans a bad name. I am not going to do anything that would cause that to be a bigger issue for them. They do them very well, and I do not want to insult them by trying to borrow their name. Um, but I think if you, as a new practitioner, learn the basics and then learn a little of everything. Learn a little herbalism. Learn a little about stones and crystals. Learn a little kitchen witchery. Learn a little bit of divination. Learn nature magic. Maybe look into cyber paganism or techno paganism, where you add technology to your practice. Maybe you practice online. Some people actually have full digital sacred spaces. I'm working on building one right now. As I pointed this out before, I literally keep a thumb drive on my altar with a digital copy of my Book of Shadows. I usually also have all digitally controlled lighting on my altar too, but I think my kid ran off with that because they like to use it as a nightlight. Whatever. Learn a little bit, and then eventually you'll find something that says, "Oh, I like this." Like for me, I can cook, but I wouldn't want to be a kitchen witch because it doesn't speak to me. I like stones and crystals. I don't think I would ever want to specialize in stones and crystals, though. And that's fine. The thing is, though, learn a little bit of everything, and then in time you may find, oh, there's this one topic I really like. Let's go down that rabbit hole. And you'll learn more and more and become an expert in this one. You'll become a specialist in this form, and then you'll say, oh, I'm this type of witch. I have been including technology in my practice since let's say about 2009 or 2010. I started with just using wikis as a Book of Shadows because that was an easy way to maintain it, and I kind of like to not use paper if I can avoid it because I will lose it or it'll get damaged. And then I eventually made it public. Then I started social networking with others in the community, and now I do rituals online. I lead rituals online. I have definitely found a specialty in that. So that's why I use the label of a techno pagan. I also call myself an urban magician because, well, I'm not a farmer. I do not live an agrarian life. I live in a city. It's not a big city. It's like 20,000 people. It's a smaller city in Central Florida, but it's where I live. And I don't necessarily find it necessary to go out into the woods all the time. It's nice, but the magic that I can find in the city is just as real, just as powerful, just as important as what I could find in the woods. It's just I'm working with spirits of the city instead of the spirits in nature. Hence why I use the term urban magician. But if you're just starting out, you don't know what you are. You have to figure this out, and it will reveal itself in time, if at all. But also, I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, what label I call myself doesn't affect me, and what label you call yourself shouldn't affect you either. You can go and include magic in your cooking and not call yourself a kitchen witch. It's no different. You can like big elaborate altars and long rituals and not call yourself a ceremonialist. These labels don't tell me who I am. They don't tell me how I practice. It gives me a word that we as a community have kind of agreed on to have a common meaning, so I can describe myself to others. If I tell another pagan, I'm a techno-pagan, they know what I'm talking about. So I can just use one word to describe my practice instead of having to explain the whole thing. If you tell me you're a hedge witch, I know what you mean. You don't have to explain the whole thing to me. We've agreed as a community that this word means this, so we can convey a much more complex practice easily to each other. Um, so if you're worried about what type of witch am I, you're not there yet. That's my opinion. Learn the basics. Um, Once you've learned the basics, start trying to get a little feel of everything. Just take a. It's like when you're, like when you go to the ice cream shop. They have a million flavors. Do you pick one immediately, or do you want a sample of everything? Decide what you like. Take a sample of everything. Learn a little divination. Learn a little bit of crystal magic and herbal magic, and demonology if you're brave enough. Learn a little bit of chaos magic. Learn time magic. Get your get a little sampling of everything, and then eventually you'll find what speaks to you and what you are really and what you may be naturally good at or what you really enjoy, and then pursue that rabbit hole. And eventually you get to a point where you say, "Oh, I'm this type," and then you'll know what type you are. There are witches who go their entire career, their entire lives, without slapping a title on it because it's not necessary. Those titles, those words that we use, are simply descriptors that we use when we speak to other people to describe our practice. That's all it is. Um, like as I said, I consider myself a cyber mage. I consider myself an urban magician. But those words only have meaning when I'm speaking to somebody else. I can speak to you and tell you I'm a cyber mage. I'm a cyber pagan. I'm a techno pagan. And you know what I mean. Even if you're new, you can take the two F's, that cyber or techno, and pagan or magician, and be like, I know what he's talking about. To me, just when I'm sitting here in my office and the camera's not running, I don't care. I don't need those words. I know who I am. I know what I practice. If you want to know what I practice, it's on my website, on my Book of Shadows. That is still perpetual. Look, I say it's a perpetual work in progress. It's always going to be a work in progress because I'm always learning. But don't rush to slap a label on yourself. It's not necessary. And if you do rush, I think you could even do more harm than good. The labels are a good way to describe to others. But if you think you need to have a type, if you think you need a label, and you do this early enough, I think a big concern would be pigeonholing yourself into something. Let's say it's your first day, you've just picked up your very first book on the topic, and you decide day one, I'm going to be a kitchen witch. So all you study is kitchen witchery. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But what if your natural talent was in divination and you never touch it? What if your natural talent was in ceremonial magic? Never read a word about it though. Because you decided early on, I must be this type, and you ignored other things that might have been just as enlightening, if not more. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying it could happen. So, the simplest solution is find yourself a resource like this and learn a little of everything. Or find yourself a teacher, or find a Facebook group and just say, hey, I want to learn a little of everything. And eventually you'll find what you work with. And the nice thing about labels is you can have more than one. Like, when I started my practice, I started off as a ceremonialist. Not a big elaborate ceremonialist, but ceremonialism was a big part of my practice. And then at some point it stopped being as important to me, so I backed off on it and picked up other interests. Ceremonialism backed up, cyber paganism moved forward. So I do say I'm an urban magician who finds the magic in the city. This is actually a fairly new practice, so I'm not sure I'd say that to many people, but it describes what I do. I am a techno-pagan. I've done a number of videos on the matter. If you want to see my ramblings on that, I would say video number 12, my thoughts on the metaverse. Actually, I think that's really the only video I've done. No, I think my 2020, my 2022 video, I think I did that too. The factor that I am teaching online and not just face to face shows. I incorporate technology as part of my practice. Um, but yeah, learn the basics. Learn learn those common basics: meditation, grounding, the basics of ritual. Um, get yourself a little flavor of all the different deities that are out there, all the different pantheons, if you are so inclined. Um, and even let's say you do decide to become a certain type of pagan, okay? You discover, oh, I've gone down this one particular thing, and I'm gonna be an elemental magician, and I'm really really good at it. Do not think that by learning all those others that you've opted not to follow, it was a bad thing. It's really not. Like, for example, um, I, as I've mentioned, at this time I don't do a lot of work with crystals and stones in my magic. I just don't. But the Corellian tradition I belong to, we have a large magical construct, a magical engine, effectively called the Great Crystal Web, and I built an access point so I can draw energy, and we can use this to share energy amongst ourselves and to generate large amounts of. So I can, if I need a little extra energy, I can pull it out of the crystal web. Me at least having a little bit of an understanding of crystal magic has made this whole process a little easier. I'm not a specialist, but at least I've learned, I know a little bit something outside of my specialty that has helped. It's also nice, let's say, I'm a techno pagan, but I've got a friend who's really into tarot cards. He's an artist who does tarot cards. He just had a deck come out. He's made numerous decks. He regularly talks about tarot. I don't really read tarot cards very much. I've got a few decks. This is my favorite right here. This is the traditional manga. This is the one I'm trying to teach myself with. But it's slow going because that's not a talent I'm naturally drawn to. But at least I know enough about tarot, so when he's speaking about it, I understand what he's talking about, even if I don't specialize in it. And I think that's a very important thing. So even if if you study topics and then you don't pursue them later, at least you know enough about them to maybe something about them will help you in what you do specialize in, what you do practice, or at least when you're talking to others in our community. And we have a huge community. I think I read the other day there was an estimated 300 to 400,000 in the United States. It's a big community, not as big as some of the bigger religions and bigger traditions, but there's a lot of us. And when you're interacting with it, they're not all going to be just like you. Their interests are not going to be like you. Their specialties are not going to be like you. They may or may not. So when I'm in a group and somebody is talking about candle magic, not something I specialize in, but I do, I know what they're talking about. When they're talking about herb magic, I don't specialize in it, but I've learned enough. I know what they're talking about. Or at least I can follow along enough. So even if you end up studying a whole bunch of different things and only following one or two of them as specialties, being exposed to a wide variety of different styles and techniques and topics will still lighten you. And I mean, if you think about it, when you go to, especially in high school and college, I speak in, they don't just teach you one necessarily specialty. Your early, like in college, like your associates, they're going to teach you like philosophy and math and science. They're going to teach you a wide variety of stuff to give you a foundation, which you're going to build your specialty on top of. Now that I say it, might have been a terrible analogy, but I think the thing is there. Give yourself a wide base, and if you pursue something, at least you still have that base. No, I'm just being repetitive. But yeah, don't rush. The long and short of it is, don't rush to slap a label on yourself. Don't worry about what type you are. Learn the basics. Learn a little bit of everything if you can. and in time you'll figure it out. I'm Dr. Michael, better known as Jedite. This is my pagan vlog. I appreciate you joining me. Do me a solid and give me a thumbs up and a subscribe. Costs you nothing, but it helps me out immeasurably. If you want to learn more about my Book of Shadows or about the Temple of the Cyber Mage, which is a Wiccan temple that I am in the process of starting, which mainly focuses on cyber paganism, as you can guess from the name. But we are also working on paganism in the modern world. So, excuse me. So what I would call urban magician, since not all of us are farmers or gardeners or able to just go out in nature, that's what it is. The Temple of the Cyber Mage also looks into we look into newer and experimental forms of magic, things that people are just starting to create and just starting to figure out. Like time magic is an interesting topic. It's also a very new branch of magic, and they're still working on building the foundations of it. But you can find it all right here, wiccan.pw. There's no .com or anything after that. It's literally Wiccan, a period, the letters PW, and then hit enter. Did I mention you should like and subscribe to this? I don't know. I think I did. But I appreciate you joining me. I said this was not going to be a rant, and I think it became a rant, so I apologize for that. But if you could do me a favor, stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, may you blessed be.